The Trayvon Walker at number 3 is interesting because I've actually heard that some people think Jacksonville's holding their cards tight and could surprise everybody on draft night and take Trayvon Walker number 1. Let's stir that thing up a little bit. And as far as Thibodeau go, I mentioned to you about the Lions, but I also have heard that if the Lions don't take him, we could be looking at a slide, a considerable slide that becomes one of those talks on draft night.
That's what I like to call a mort bomb. Todd, let's lean into this number 1 pick. What are you hearing here on Walker to the Jags?
Listen, I love Trayvon Walker. I've been saying he's a first-round pick going back to October when he was on nobody's radar. He's explosive. He's 6'5", 272 pounds. He's got left tackle arm length, 35.5 inches. And he ran a 4.51. I mean, running backs would kill. A lot of the running backs would kill to have that kind of speed. And he's got it at 272 pounds. But he only had 9.5 career sacks. And I can chalk a lot of that up to the gap discipline and the scheme he played in and all the talent around him. But you compare him to Aiden Hutchinson, who had 14 sacks, set his school record this past season, just in one season versus 9.5 career sacks. And you got to wonder. And the other thing is, Aiden Hutchinson is a franchise pillar. That's the kind of player he is. You watch his preparedness pre-snap. You know, he sees something out, he's calling out to the rest of the defensive line just off of the tape that he studied. You watch his plan as a pass rusher. He knows exactly how he's attacking guys on the edges with his hands. I just think that he's the kind of guy you bring in, and he turns the whole defense around with his leadership and his effort and his work ethic. And that's why I think when you're talking about number 1 overall, I love Trayvon Walker's traits, and he could go number 2 overall to Detroit, but I would be shocked if Jacksonville passes on Hutchinson.
Yeah, Todd, you know what's interesting, too, is if we think about who is in charge when it comes to the decision-making in Jacksonville, and that now is Trent Baalke, a general manager who, when he was with the San Francisco 49ers, would often really covet physical traits over a college resume. And that's exactly what we're talking about now with Trayvon Walker. So, again, I'm not saying that he goes that route here, but Baalke did have a history with the 49ers. His draft grades would often not be very high right out of the draft because people would say, wow, he really didn't take guys that projected based off of college resume. If he continues that trend, it does make sense that he would maybe go against the grain and take someone that's not as conventional with that number 1 overall pick.
Interesting.
Yeah, like for me, it's like, you know, wait a minute, guys. We're going to take the guy number 1 off of traits. And I get it. I get all the, you know, I get this, what he was asked to do in that scheme down in Georgia and, his combine and all those type of things. But we're talking about the number 1 overall pick. And we just, this is a passing league. We just haven't seen that out of Trayvon Walker as far as rush moves, counter rush moves, being able to consistently get to the quarterback. We've seen that from Aiden Hutchinson. Is he Myles Garrett? No. Is he as twitchy as Nick Bosa? No. But I think just from a character standpoint, he got better and better every year at Michigan. And it ultimately, came about where this guy had 14 sacks his last year at the University of Michigan. So give me that guy who I've seen on film do it over and over again as compared to a guy who's from a trait standpoint have what you like, but I just haven't seen that production as far as getting after the quarterback consistently.
And to be clear here, we're not saying that Trayvon Walker is going to, fall down past the top 10. Look, I think it's very realistic as Mel has him slotted. He could go at 3. He could go maybe a little bit past that. But, Key, do you think it's smart to bet on someone a little bit here, which is what they would be doing with the number 1 overall pick?
I think when you got the number 1 overall pick, you need a sure bet. That's a game changer, a franchise pillar, much like the guys are saying right there. You don't hope and pray with the number 1 overall pick, because if he becomes a bust versus a boom, it sets your franchise back forever. And if I have any reservations at all about taking Hutchinson, Thibodeau, or Walker with the number 1 overall pick, I'm looking to get out of there, even if it's not a quarterback that somebody is going up to get. Why just pick someone just because you have the number 1 overall selection? I remember when I played for the Jets and we had the number 1 overall pick in Bill Parcells, and Peyton Manning decided not to come out that year. Guess what we did? We traded the number 1 overall pick, and we wind up being in the AFC Championship game, and those guys that we selected with all of those picks helped us do that. And Trent Baalke is a part of that Bill Parcells mindset, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's thinking that way as well.
Just two things for me. First of all, I think it's interesting what Mort was saying, too, talking about Kayvon Thibodeau. But when you look at this, it could be the first time in decades in the draft that we see 3 defensive players come off the board, whether it's Aiden Hutchinson or Trayvon Walker at 1. I can tell you for a fact right now, Detroit would die to have Hutchinson at number 2. So they'd be thrilled if Jacksonville went with Walker at 1. And then at number 3, Houston could take Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon. So that would be the first time in a long time that we saw 3 defensive players.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.